Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Global Radio and TV Live, and I am your host, Dr. Ravi. The number to call is 469 307 1642 1642. I would like to thank our viewers in the USA and also in the order of viewership in India, Morocco, Taiwan, Canada, Sudan, Japan, Ukraine, China, Korea, and Iraq. Now, if I haven't mentioned your country's name exactly, you know what to do. Just shoot us an email. We will add you to that list. Now, at Global Radio and TV Live, all topics are sometimes controversial, and also there is a bunch of conspiracy theories. I am a scientist, so I like talks that are scientifically based, but sometimes we cannot do that. For example, in this show, we discussed the existence of God, the controversial topic for some people, sighting of UFOs and aliens, JFK assassination, US debt, all controversial, two extremes, firm believers and extreme skeptics. Today's topic is a Christian based novel called Wood's End, written by Alexandra Clair. I had the opportunity to read the two of her books, The Wood's End, a novel, and a non fiction book, Discerning Spirits, with a subtitle Visionary Gifts in Practice. Alexandra, it is my pleasure to have you on board and welcome to Global Radio and TV Live.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and to get to talk to you.
Most welcome. Here is what I would like to do. Before we go any further, I want to show our audience the two books you have already written. You are also going to show us the next book that is in the series, Wood's End, and the other one is Discerning Spirits. And the one on my left hand, perhaps on your right side, is the novel. I had read most of it. I didn't read the last part simply because I didn't want to give it away.
Oh,
So I don't. So you cannot blame me. So that
no.
absolutely. So after the show is finished, I'm going to go back and read. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, this one, I have to say, is a riveting reading, and it kept me busy for the last couple of days. I usually don't read novels, and it is not in my character to sit there and spend a lot of time on novels. But what I found about this book was, from an impartial view, number one, it kept me engaged, and I liked the characters, especially the characters of Andrea and Jared and Dudley and all the different characters that she came up with. And I have a lot of questions about the book, but the book is not subject to any question because remember, this is a novel. So I may ask her how did she come up with all these ideas. Now the other book, it's mostly a Christian book. That our many of our audience who are not Christians, if you want to know more about Christianity, you should read this book. So I don't have any problem promoting this as well. And Andrea, go ahead and tell us, our audience, the third book on your series. What is it exactly, and when is it coming out?
Well, this is the actually the second book in the series, and it's finished. It's called The Year Between the Wood, and it goes back and looks at the year that Jared, after he gets shot, and then he comes back into the picture in Wood's End to solve this murder that Andrea has been framed for. And he's been attacked because he's, with a lot of, he's very assertive. He's a police detective, and he's on the right track, knowing who's really responsible for this murder that she's been framed for. So the second book looks at that year and looks at his, and it's a book about a child that's kidnapped, and now it's 20 years later, and he solves this cold case and finds that this cold case is connected to the Woods End murder. And then the third book is called The Year Between the Wood, or the third book is called The World in the Wood, and I've started it and I haven't finished it. And that title comes from Tolkien. In his writing, he kind of presents this theme of the world in the wood. And so I kind of took that that title from his work.
Well, you have spent the last couple of years, or I don't know how many years you spent. Looks like you have been very busy for the last few years.
Well, I love to write. I've always written. I think if you're a writer, it's in you. I have a three-part historical novel I started when my children were small, and I'd like to get back to that someday. It takes place in Ireland. And I really consider myself a fiction author. So when I wrote Discerning Spirits, it just was something God asked me to do, so I did. So I felt like there was a lot of confusion about exorcism and deliverance, and that we throw these terms around, and I wanted to kind of define sort of this ministry in a way where people could be on the same page. Because bottom line, we usually agree, but if we're using different semantics, we can get pretty confused about the topic.
Well, the story Wood's End. Let's concentrate on that
Okay.
on that subject
Great.
particular book because that's the one I read.
Oh, good. I'm so glad
and
you read it. Thank you.
the story starts with the divorce scene with the two main characters, Andrea and Dudley.
Yes.
Um, in the divorce attorney's office. Set us the scene for our audience. Number one, the first scene is a critical scene. Now, this scene would probably work very well in a movie setting because you already is getting to the bottom of the essence of the novel. Okay, where the conflicts have already happened and they are coming to a final decision, even though it's not a final decision in terms of continuation of the novel.
Hmm.
Said our audience, you said something very important. In one of your speeches, which I was following, you said writing is nothing but rewriting. How did you come up with this particular scene, and did you write the scenes over and over again?
Yes. Yes, I wrote. Writing is rewriting, and any writer I think knows that. So just getting it right, getting it to say what you really wanted to say. And then also, I usually write too much. I over explain things. That's a bad habit I have. So when I think of writing for a reader, I go back and try and sort of pare things down, excuse me, so that it's it says more succinctly what I want said, because I know that myself, when I'm reading a book, I don't like to be told what to think. I like to let the reader, I like to make up my own mind. And so I want to respect the reader in that same way. I don't want to tell them what to think or give them too much information. And it's been fascinating to talk to people who have read the book, who come up with details that have impressed them that I didn't really think were that important when I was writing it. So it's been really fun to talk to people about the book, and I so appreciate you reading it. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. When I was reading through that, there was one requirement on that particular divorce. I think you don't mind if I just talk about some of the scenes.
No, not at all.
Okay, one of the
No,
requirement on the Woods End movie was that Andrea, the lady who is getting divorced from her 12-year old marriage,
yeah,
wants that particular estate. Now, that particular estate belonged to Dudley's family and their
yes,
forefathers. Tell
yes,
tell us, is there some sort of bad omen about that estate?
yes, there is. Woods End is a farm in western Massachusetts, near the North Adams area. I grew up in Massachusetts, and so I placed the book in Massachusetts. It was easy to write about, even though I don't live there now. And so it is a haunted property. It's very important to the family because they are Satanists. I don't say that in the book, but they are, and they're practicing Satanists. And so there have been lots of occult ritual going on in that property. When I go in to cleanse a property, for example, I'm always interested in the history of the house. I don't have to know too many details, but you can discern what's going on there. So there is this history, and Andrea, of course, doesn't have a clue. She just knows from the divorce, the arguments that are going on in the office with the lawyer as they're trying to divide the property, that for some reason it's important to Dudley and important to his lawyer, Samuel Marstead, and so she just decides she wants the property, and then she ends up moving there, and of course it is a haunted property, um, and but she's kind of slow to pick up on this and realize what's going on.
Okay. the Woodson property had a or still has a started sordid past, murder and
Yes.
suicide in the history of the property, and Andrea, who got divorced from her husband, to whom this property belongs to, doesn't have a clue that this is not a one that she would be staying in, and one
No.
of her friends, her name is Julie, I think,
Yes.
and she was talking to her, who is a real estate agent, and Julie was telling that, well, I never heard of that property. It never came into my radar. So there was some kind of um, uh, story going on around in that town. That property is not really the one to be desired.
Exactly. It has a history, and people in the town are aware of that history. And the people in the town are also aware of the Woods End family. Um, and they have driven basically the Woods End family out of the town. And Andrea, of course, because they're not living at the property, but they come back at certain times of the year. So Andrea is living there, and she's in denial. She's divorced her husband. She thinks that she's free of him, and she doesn't realize that she was involved with this cult too. And although she can divorce him, he's not going to let go of her so easily. He's completely obsessed with her, and he has to have her back under his control. And so there are those dynamics that are always associated with cults, where people want to take over their will, their autonomy, their ability to choose. And so she's been drawn, and that's one of the reasons why she's divorcing Dudley, is he's violent and she's trying to divorce him. She thinks she's free of him, but of course she's not.
Well, one of the interesting characteristics about Dudley is he is a very accomplished physician or a
Yes,
surgeon,
yes, yes, he is.
and he was spending most of his time at the hospital, and certainly he was helping to the best of his professional career. But you are saying that whatever he's doing in that particular regard really has nothing to do with the cult to which he or his family belongs. Is that how the story develops?
Well, in the third book, it develops more that his family's doing research and they use that hospital. They've invested in that hospital. It's a private hospital. It's owned pretty much by his family. And so there's going to be some research going on. I can't divulge too much of it because I haven't actually written it yet, but that's kind of my theme. So
Okay.
all these little details that you kind of pick up on and get suspicious of, um, they're developed further in the subsequent books. And so far, I'm planning 4 books, so 4 in the series.
Well, interesting because there was a movie very similar to this. I don't know who acted. His first name is Christopher. I don't know the last name of this. It has something to do with the exorcism. There were 3 series, and the little boy was there, who was possessed by the devil,
Yeah,
and therefore, they had to do something. And it looks like you have another novel here, which is very interesting to be able to go in that genre.
yeah,
Now, this is not a comedy for any stretch of imagination. This is more of a suspense thriller.
yes. It's
Okay,
kind of a psychodrama.
psychodrama.
And,
Yes.
and of course, we have this. Dudley has tried to frame Andrea for the murder of his second wife, and he's married Stephanie, who is an Andrea lookalike. A lot of men I've noticed when they get older, they'll divorce the first wife, but they'll marry someone who looks like a younger version of that first wife. So that's what Dudley has done. He's obsessed with Andrea. He can't believe he's lost her in this divorce. And he marries someone who is younger, looks like her, and of course Stephanie ends up murdered, and then Andrea is framed for that murder. And I don't know if you got that far with the book. Um,
Well, I got that far with the book where Andrea was cornered and framed. And as a matter of fact, Dudley, I did not exactly figure out exactly, but Dudley was there even before they got confession out of her, and he was there, and the detectives were surprised. How come the ex-husband is allowed to be left with her at the time of
exactly.
trauma?
Exactly. He should have, you know, it's a conflict of interest. It's against the code for him to be treating someone in the emergency room who is related to him. But she comes in, it's a very small emergency room. They have a very small staff. It's in the middle of the night, and he's contrived it all this way. And then, of course, he gives her a medication that induces psychosis, and that's part of his plan. And so it's kind of a complicated plot, but
well, we are going to come to that. Here is what we are going to do. We need to take a short break here.
okay.
And during this break, we are going to show something very interesting. Okay, and then we will come back and talk to Alexandra about this particular scene. It's going to last about 3 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Global Radio and TV Live, and the number to call is 469-307-1642-1642. We will be right back. Alexandra, please stay on the line.
Thank you so much.
Hey, city boy. I almost called the fire truck. What is this mess? A bed?
That's right.
Whose bed?
Mine.
You burnt your bed?
Well, at the time, it seemed like a good idea. That nightmare I told you about came back with a vengeance. Let's just say that that bed was the weapon of choice, and there was this gatekeeper. You can't negotiate with the devil, so...
So, Jared, let me get this straight. You saw something that you thought was real, but now you think it's a dream?
It was both. Something that doesn't exist in the real world.
There's a demonic stronghold over Woodson Farm. Our families have been fighting what's there for generations.
You think I'm being harassed by ghosts?
I didn't say ghost. What you experienced was a demon.
Okay, I'm awake. For heaven's sake, come on, Charlie. Come on, baby boy. Come on. Yes, don't you worry. It's too early for Sybil. All right, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna make some tea. Then I'm gonna feed you. And then, if the phone persists, we'll see what that old witch wants this time. Come on. Come on, sweet boy. Come on, baby boy. There you go. There you go. Of course she wants money, Cab fare for the casino, drunk and disorderly, picked up for shoplifting, who knows? Dudley's no longer around to rescue her, and Marston firm's no longer at her disposal. All she's got's us now. It's us, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Global Radio and TV Live. You saw some snippets of the show there. It is fascinating. After I reading the book, it actually become live when these actors were portraying the characters in the novel. Jared, you saw there, and his this other partner, Jared's partner there, talking to him. Who is he exactly?
That is Thorson. That is Thorson Dillahunt, Thor in the book.
Okay.
And that part is played by Bob Gaypart, who's a pastor in real life. So he's basically playing himself. And the actors were wonderful. That was J.W. Williams, who was in Walk the Line, that movie. And Amy Gousset is a wonderful, wonderful actress. When we heard her read We just knew that she was right for Andrea, even though Andrea is described in the book with blonde hair. Amy just did such a great job. We knew she was the right actress for that. So, yeah,
Where
and it
did
was a lot of fun. That is the pre-production trailer, which we made to try and induce investors into investing in a full-feature independent film. The script is finished and ready to go, but Brian Churchill, 43 years old, passed away last year, September 14th, 2013, and he was a big part of moving the project forward. Right now, the screenplay is being considered, but that doesn't mean much. It could be just sitting somewhere on someone's desk. But I would love to make the film myself. We would need about to do an independent film and to finish that in that quality that we have there. It would take a little less than $1 million to take the film through post.
Well, so are you planning to raise money for this through many different activities?
Well, I'm completely open. I would love to raise the money. If someone came along and said they would like to produce this film, I would love to have the money to be able to do it. I have everything ready to go. I have all the paperwork in place. I have the capital investment agreement and the prospectus and the shooting schedule and everything done. The locations are all set in this little area where I live. But I would need to do it myself, I would need to have a little less than $1 million.
So the question is, let's talk about this. That's an interesting topic. Always business is my interest. So let me ask you this. So the plot takes place in upstate New York, or
yes, it does. It takes place in Western Massachusetts.
Western Massachusetts.
Yeah, right on the
same as on that North Adams, that area.
Yeah.
Okay. I used to live in Albany, by the way.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Okay, and the actual shooting is going to take place in Tennessee.
Yes,
now, how do you plan to get the snow? I know that you guys have done a very good job. You showed us a lot of snow. But at the same time, when the actual conversation takes place between the pastor and Jared, there was no snow on the ground.
No.
Well, of course, only guys like me who would be watching it critically would be able to figure that out.
Yeah. It's cold, though. I mean, they're dressed for winter pretty much. But it just is starting to snow. And then Brian and I later on, the cover of Woods End actually comes from the scenes, that are taken from that first clip that you took, and also the cover for the second book, The Year Between the Wood, is taken from that. That was a really cold, snowy day, and Brian called me and said, let's go out to the site and just do some filming. And we climbed over a fence, the house, no one was there, and trudged through the snow, and he got those beautiful scenes that you saw in the beginning of the film.
Yeah, and there was another part that is going to come up where little ice speck pierces through the palm of Andrea. We are going to show that particular clip. But there is a snow out there in West Tennessee.
Yes, there is, yeah.
Okay.
And of course, Andrea is trying to wake herself up. She's kind of in a daze there, and she's trying to wake herself up. She doesn't know when she sees that demon who she's having that conversation with if she's actually dreaming. She's not sure of what her state is. And so now we would use, when we actually made that film, that was again just the pre-production trailer, that scene is actually smaller, shorter in the actual film, in the actual screenplay. But we would use more computer-generated imagery to make it look more realistic and more sophisticated.
Okay. And after Andrea moves into this house in Woods End, a couple of characters show up. Now, one of the characters we are going to show on one of the breaks, the guy who is wearing a hat, but he can't see his eyes.
Yes.
Who is that character?
That is the primary demon. There's always a primary demon who has control of a haunted property, and the other demons are subjected to that demon. And that is the generational demon that is on that property. And that generational demon cannot come into the house and harm anybody in the house without an invitation. So that's why he says to her, he's trying to sort of very cleverly get her to invite him into the house. And of course, if that happens, it's going to be a horrible thing for Andrea. But right now, she's protected. And but again, there has to be a door opened, as is always the case when a property is infested with demons. There's always a door that opens. So the door that he's under, Satan is very legalistic. So the door for him is that she has to invite him into the house.
Very interesting. Okay, the next question I have for you, this is critical. Many people, many authors, when they write a book or novel, there is a significant amount of overlap between their own personal life and the novels they are writing. Okay, now this is a generalization, of course, but I'm going to ask you a specific question. Do you have any of your life experiences that became part of this novel?
Well, I wanted to demonstrate what I don't know if I intended it at the time, but afterwards, as I thought about it, I thought, there's so much that comes out of Hollywood about demonic properties and this theme of exorcism that is just not biblical, not the actual facts. It's sort of manipulating people to be afraid. The power of Jesus Christ to overcome in all circumstances is, I don't like it when evil wins out. So I wanted to show the context in a Christian context. I wanted to show that because, we have power over that as through Christ to banish evil from any situation. A lot of times we don't take that authority that we have, but we can take it within our grasp. And that was why I wrote Discerning Spirits. I wanted to explain what that gift was, spiritual gift was, and what we, all people, all believers have. Jesus Christ, loves everybody, and we have power to overcome in all circumstances. So I wanted to show that. And I didn't intend it when I started it. When I started the book, I myself was going through a really difficult time. So maybe some of the angst of that came through. But I guess if I would identify with a character I've written about, it would not be Andrea. It would be Nora in the second book.
Okay, so we don't know. The Nora is not part of the first book, right?
No, she's
because
not.
I haven't read her name on it, so.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
So there's a reference to her because Jared kind of falls in love with her, and she turns him down.
Oh, he falls in love with Nora, and Nora turns him down.
Yes, yeah.
And then, okay, anyway, so that's that. We don't want to go too much detail into that, right?
Yeah. Especially because I haven't finished. Well, I have finished writing it. Yeah.
You have finished writing it, but people have to finish reading it. So
yeah, it's better to read the first book first.
Okay. Now, in your character development of Dudley, it's now clear to me after reading through the book, somewhat clear to me that he hates everything that is Christian or Jewish. I would probably imagine he will hate anything that has anything to do with any religion.
Yes, and, any goodness that comes from anything people believe, he would hate.
I see. Okay. Mm-hmm. And he married Stephanie. Okay.
Yes.
In the show, in the movie, or in the novel, and Stephanie has a 6-year-old little daughter.
Yes.
Okay. And one of the contention that Dudley had with his ex-wife, Andrea, is that he wanted to have a child, and apparently they tried for 12 years, but Andrea did not allow herself to bear his child simply because she felt something wrong about him.
Yes.
Now, is this a women's intuition all over the world?
Yeah, he was. Dudley's violent. He's an abuser, and he's been physically violent to her, which is another reason why she's leaving the marriage in the first part of the book. So she's not going to have a child with him. But Dudley is compelled to have a child. His family, the various families that, these satanic families are competing to have the last Antichrist of world history. And so he's kind of like a Hitler world leader type, and someone who is what I call fatally possessed. And so he wants Andrea to have a child. She's expecting to have a son. He expected to have a son with her. And so I don't know if you got to the part where she's in the hospital again. He contrives to get her out of prison, and but that kind of explains it a little further, and then it's developed further in the third book.
Well, I just got to that part. I know that's towards a couple of hundred pages down the road.
Well, I'm just so impressed with you, Ravi. I'm so grateful that you're reading it.
Well, look at here how many notes I have written page after page.
And thank you. And it
book.
always thrills me. It just thrills me.
Well, my job is to, if I have to take up a job, I got to give complete justice to it. So
well, I have to say I've been interviewed by a lot of people who they ask me to send the books and they don't read them, and I can always tell when they haven't. So I just appreciate how thoughtful you've been and thorough in this interview. Thank you so much. I'm impressed with you.
Oh, most welcome. Thank you. Well, there is another 3 points that we have to discuss, which is the perpetrator, passive facilitator, and caustic agent. Okay.
Yes.
Now
yes.
these 3 we are going to discuss after we take a short break.
Okay.
And continue to listen to the movie pre-script. And we will come back and ask a few more questions to Alex. Alex, stay on the line. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back.
Thank you.
We're about wrung out, aren't we, Charlie?
You've been in the same place that I am right now. The truth is, I would just be grateful if I could escape this marriage with my life, with my daughter's life. If we could shine some light on that family of his on Marstead. You have more reason than I do to want revenge.
It wouldn't be safe for either of us. Just hang up.
No,
now.
don't do that. Do not hang up, please. Okay, just, you can listen. I'll talk. You can listen. It's simple, it's easy, okay? Are you there? They are all crazy. They really believe this crap. That you're some Mary figure and that you will give birth to the Antichrist. And that mother of yours? Surely you must know that she tells Dudley everything. Keeps him up to date on how many cups of coffee you drink.
No, my mother, she is not part of this.
You and I both know that that witch is not your mother. You must have celebrated when you discovered that neat piece of news. Because I'm not talking about the kind that goes out on Halloween and trick-or-treats in a fashion disaster of a hat.
How do you know this? How can you know
You can't be this oblivious. I need you to wake up, okay? They will do anything to have that Antichrist figure born into their clan. If you could just help me, please get my little girl far, far away from this place.
No, you're crazy. You're crazy, like the rest of them. You lie. You lie. I am not helping you, Stephanie.
Don't hang up, okay? This is what I think we can do.
Can you imagine how Woods End got its name? My girl, can you imagine how Woods End got its name? Place names are important. They can be portals of introduction. And well, may I just say, Mrs. Woods, welcome home.
It's Woods End, and I'm divorced.
Of course.
You were going to tell me about the name.
The others didn't want me to come over so soon to make your acquaintance, but I'll tell you about Woods End. And then if you don't mind, I'll have that cup of tea you offered. Indoors is the place for polite discourse. Don't you agree?
You were saying about the name.
The lower reaches of this valley, extending from Woods End up to where the first cabin stood, were covered in summer with fireflies. Like moths to a flame, early interlopers mistook the glow of fireflies for the welcoming light of settlement. Here, they met death. Many scalps were taken, until word carried back. Beyond the tree line at Woods End Farm, where the river bends and the salt springs red, and still They hike the old trails. They visit the places and houses, seeking a titillating resonance of what lies beyond. And we are there to accommodate. So you see, Woods End has always belonged.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Global Radio and TV Live. We were listening to The Head Demon. Well, Andrea, welcome back. That particular sound, he sounds very good. So
Yes.
is that the plan? I mean, make him sound very good. He sounds almost Clint Eastwood-like.
That is, his name is Steve Butler, and he's a radio personality here in Memphis and does some local acting. And he's a wonderful actor. I'd really, if we do get to make the movie, I would love to cast him in the role of Marstead, the attorney, because he's such a versatile actor. And yes, he did a great job. And then that was Bridget McCall who played the part of Stephanie, and she's just a beautiful girl.
Oh yeah, you have a cast that. Who was the casting agent on this?
Well, we used Lisa Lax, the Lisa Lax agency, and a couple of the actors were from, I think one of them actually was from another agency. The name escapes me. So they sent people in for Brian and I to listen to them and decide who we wanted. The last role that we cast was the part of Jared. It was very hard to find that actor. And then, of course, the other two producers, Penny Karras and Joan Thomas, who was very instrumental in getting this pre-production trailer moving. Joan Thomas, who was a good friend of mine. We had Jared over to her house and we listened to him. And so it was kind of a collaborative thing. And we listened to a lot of actors read, but this was the cast that we pulled together, and we felt it was the right one.
Very good. You have got that production very nicely. It came out very well, and it also makes it that much more interesting for all parties to watch the show.
There are a lot of independent films made, and the quality is very poor. We wanted the quality to be excellent and to be competitive with anything else. John Paul Clark was our director of photography. And he's a very talented young man. He lives in the Bronx, New York, and he came down and he was our director of photography with his team. And then Anthony Espina, he did the score, the musical score, and wrote a wonderful piece of music which you didn't hear called Andrea's Theme as well. But Anthony Espina lives in Florida, and he's a young man. I think he's in his very early 20s, but he's very talented. So we had an original score as well.
So where would I find the Andrea's Theme title music?
I'll send it to you. It is on YouTube, and I'll send it to you.
Well, I would like to listen to it right now.
Okay, I don't know how to find it. I'm afraid if I looked for it on my computer, I'll lose you.
Don't worry. Okay, let's try that. Andrea's Theme?
Yeah, it's called Andrea's Theme. And it's a very nice piece of music that Anthony wrote, Anthony Espina, and that's kind of his love. Is he loves film. Everyone we brought together just had a love for film.
Is this the one?
And
no, this is not it.
No,
this says Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah, no. It has a picture of Andrea sitting on the front steps. Amy Gousset, the actress, sitting on the front steps, and.
So there's I think San Andreas theme song is a remix. So that's all San Andreas. So there's something else.
Yeah, that's something else. I think it might be hard to find because although it is on YouTube, it's not widely listened to the way the pre-production trailer is accessed. So it probably wouldn't come up on a search really well.
Oh, okay. All right, no problem. Let's go to the next subject matter, which is the three things that you talked about in your book, and also in the other ideas that you gave on the second book, which is the Discerning Spirits. Tell us what do you mean by perpetrator, passive facilitator, and caustic agent for change? Now you have given examples of these three from the book: Dudley, Sybil, and Jared. Okay.
Yes.
So tell our audience exactly how this actually works out in real life.
Well, in real life, whenever there is a crime committed or whenever there is an assault upon people's autonomy, their ability to choose, in any cult situation where people are being controlled, there is always a perpetrator. And the perpetrator cannot get away with the level of crime that they get away with, the level of assault upon others that they get away with, unless there's almost always somewhere in the picture a passive facilitator. And of course, Dudley is very clearly in Wood's End the perpetrator. And the passive facilitator is anyone that allows him, the system, even it can even be a systemic, corrupt system that allows the perpetrator to operate in this culture, this particular culture. And then the caustic agent for change is anybody who comes along and decides that they're going to reveal the truth, that they're on they have high ethics and they're going to reveal the truth, and the truth is going to come out. So, for example, when you had the kidnapping of J.C. Dubard, I think her name was, there were lots of opportunities for people to help her,
right?
But they never did.
Yeah.
But clearly, his relationship with his wife, she was very much a partner in crime, but she started out as a passive facilitator. Then a passive facilitator becomes a volunteer. They move from being, okay, I'm not going to get involved, I'm a little intimidated, I'm not going to say what this is. And so they move then from being along this journey, from being a passive facilitator, turning the other way, being in denial, maybe about a child who's a drug addict, whatever the situation happens to be. And then they become a volunteer, and they step over the line. And then the caustic agent for change is always that person, wonderful people in law enforcement, detectives, and, nurses, and yourself, in your profession, are many times the caustic agent for change that steps in and says, things are going to be better and we're going to reveal the truth. And we're not going to partner in any way with keeping secrets.
Okay, very good. See, while we were talking about these three aspects of it, and I can understand this is very common among very dysfunctional families.
Yes, and I would say that the best definition, I just wanted to add this, of evil that I've ever read is Scott Peck's description of evil that I put in the book Discerning Spirits. I quoted him from his book, People of the Lie. And he has just what I consider and have used his sort of model, because we don't, when I'm doing deliverance and people come to me for help, I don't see the perpetrators. I see the victims of the perpetrators. And so these are the people that kind of get caught in the crosshairs, sometimes very innocently. And so I think his definition is probably the best definition I've ever come across, and I can read it if you want me to.
Yeah, while we are picking it up, let's go ahead and listen to that music for a minute, because I
Okay.
found that. Wow, that was great music. Very good. All right.
Yeah, our plan is if we get to make the movie, if the funds come in and we get to make the movie, that whenever that character of Andrea is on scene, part of that music will be playing in the background. So we sort of had a plan about the and how to use the music, and that was a particularly nice set, I think.
That particular music is actually going to be played when she is encountering the demon. Remember that's where she was sitting, and then the head demon was walking towards her. Are you still there, Andrea? Okay. Well, we lost Andrea there. Just a minute. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm sorry I lost you.
Yeah. Okay. Can you see me here now?
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not seeing you yet, but I can hear you. So
You can hear me. All right.
yeah,
Hold on just a minute. Now you should be able to see me.
yes,
Oh God, you see yourself.
I see myself. Yeah.
Okay, good, good. No
And
problem.
listen,
So that particular music we were talking about, she was sitting there on the porch, and this evil demon was walking towards her.
yeah,
So see, so this music will be played whenever there is presence of Andrea in that movie. That's a great music, by the way. I like that music. So that must be that will catch on as people starting to listen to the music, because many times a good movie has a good musical score, and that carries the day in many
absolutely.
situations.
I so agree with you. I think music is so important for a film. And we wanted to have an original piece of music. We didn't want to be using stock music.
Uh-huh.
And of course, and so we wanted to spend the money to make sure we had a score that would really be a good one. And Anthony Espina is very, very talented.
Okay, now you're going to read about Scott Peck. Can we go ahead and listen to that?
Yes, Scott Peck makes the point in his book, In the Confluence of Medicine and Faith, that evil people evidence these certain kinds of traits. And I'm just going to read it. Consistent, destructive scapegoating behavior, which may often be quite subtle. Excessive, usually covert intolerance to criticism and other forms of narcissistic injury. So, that's typical of evil. They can't tolerate criticism. Pronounced concern with a public image and self-image of respectability, contributing to a stability of lifestyle, but also to pretentiousness and denial of hateful feelings or vengeful motives. And I really like that, the way he described that, because evil is not always obvious. These poor people who are trapped in a narcissistic personality, they're basically empty vessels, and they're not necessarily psychotic. They are operational. And so, and then the last one is intellectual deviousness with an increased likelihood of a mild schizophrenic-like disturbance of thinking at times of stress. And that fit very much what I've seen in Deliverance, where when people are confronted and they really have to kind of face the truth about themselves and some of the injuries that they've perpetrated on other people, that they, rather than face that, they will retreat into kind of a breakdown. But of course, they're not psychotic, so they'll recover from that.
Well, that's an interesting point, because you are saying that in writing this book, there was a lot of opposition from the supernatural.
Yes, there was.
And now that you have finished the book and trying to convert this into a movie, do you still see opposition to your efforts?
Do I see opposition to what?
To your efforts of continuing this work?
Oh, the efforts.
Yeah.
No, there have been some, there has been some opposition, but, I just pray on a regular basis. I consider myself I'm devoted to prayer, and so I pray on a regular basis. If I don't pray on a regular basis, then, things can happen. Sometimes I see things happen. But we were very fortunate when we made the film. When we made those, it's not a film, of course, it's just a pre-production trailer that is made to show investors the quality of what our team could have produced. Everything went very smoothly. I'm so grateful. And of course, Brian Churchill, who's no longer with us, he had a reoccurrence of his cancer. and passed away, as I said, September. So we don't have a director for this film. We would have to find a director.
Well, these are these are unexpected things that happen, but I don't think you can attribute them to anything so evil or bad, because
No,
this is
no,
just an
life is, yeah, life
coincidence.
happens.
Life happens, yes.
Hmm.
Okay. The next question I have for you, this is one of my last questions, but before we go into that, I want to go ahead and continue to play this, because visual, a picture can say 1,000 words, right? So let's listen to the rest of some portions of the movie that was taken up last time. Let's take a look.
Thank you.
All right, here it comes, ladies and gentlemen. Takes a little bit of time, but we will get there. All right, here is the sound.
In spring, I'll have it sanded and painted.
In spring, I plow up Indian heads, bloody with the refuse of torn flesh. They smell delicious.
Jared, I don't push religion because you don't allow me to talk about the subject. And when I do, you just laugh it off.
Are you judging me?
Afraid I'll invite you to church and super glue you to the pew. Have you put your faith in Christ? Are you a believer?
I don't know.
My point exactly. Where's the Bible I gave you?
If I can sleep in a bed again, if I can afford to buy a bed, I'll put it under my pillow.
Well, here's a novel idea. Try reading it. It hose down the perimeter of this fire.
Hey, where are you going?
I'm not on the clock, and I got a busy day tomorrow. Got a hen house to clean and compost pile to turn, and you got a case to solve. And no more drinking. Just lowers your defenses.
Very interesting. The work that has been done by the director. I think he is a very good director, and he had done a fantastic job. I believe that he probably did this on a very small budget.
Yes, we did it on a very small budget. Brian and I and Joan Thomas and Penny Karras, we all kind of contributed to come up with the money. And of course, we had to pay union wages to John Paul Clark's, so that brought our budget up. John Paul Clark, our director of photography, to his crew. And then we had some other volunteers that came in to help us as well. So, but that scene that you saw with Andrea going in to wash her hands, that's my favorite scene. I just think that's so artfully produced. And that was John Paul Clark, the director of photography, and he just did an excellent job.
Yeah, really. See, I'm glad that the scenes I picked, you liked most of them.
Yeah, of all of that, I like that scene the best.
Okay.
And of course, I had an email from somebody right after that scene in the book. Andrea then goes in and calls Stephanie on the phone and tells her that she will come in and meet with her.
Correct.
And I got an email from someone that was at that place in the book and said, no, Andrea, don't go. But I know she will. So it was, she had to send me an email because she was so upset about Andrea agreeing to go and meet with Stephanie and opening that door then to Dudley having access to her again.
Yes. Okay. Well, one of the things that I wanted to ask you about, how do you feel, this has nothing to do with the book. We will talk about the book because we got another 5 minutes left.
Okay.
Generally, you said, this is an important question, you said that your husband was fashioned after Zach, or Zach was
Mm-hmm.
fashioned after your husband?
Well, my ex-husband,
Oh,
we're no
ex-husband.
longer married.
Okay.
We were married for,
There is a. Are you still there, Andrea?
I think I might have lost
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
Okay, yes.
Okay. Go
Um,
ahead.
we're no longer married. But yes, the character of Zach, who I love the character of Zach. In fact, he's the favorite character that a lot of people like. He's 16 years old and he rescues Andrea. He's kind of starts out as an anti-hero. He's in rebellion against his parents, and but he's a wonderful character. And in the script, Zach plays a big part in the script, of course, the movie script, and it will be fun to cast for that role.
Okay, so let's now turn away from this and ask you some general questions. Do you think, based upon, you are a Christian faith-based person, based upon
Yes.
what you have seen so far, is America is going in the right direction or not?
No, I think we're in general on the road to a correction. You know, if you read history, all through history, there are cycles. And we're at the place where, at least in America, I believe there's a lot of systemic corruption that goes on in the financial industries, and it's impacting us politically and driving too many political decisions. And I think we're on the road to a major correction. And we always see that happening in history. If you read history, I've just been reading Winston Churchill's, volumes on history, and so yeah, I think we're on the road to a correction of some kind. We're facing some consequences, and but I'm optimistic. I'm somebody who's optimistic. I always want to be engaged myself in the best way that I can. So I'm not someone who wrings their hands and says I'm going to stay home and hide my head. You know, I want to be involved in the context of whatever gifts God has given me, and be engaged. And I do believe that we can turn things around if we would have the will to do it. But it takes, again, peeling back the veneer and doing something about this corruption that takes place almost at all levels in our political system, in our government, in our financial industries. I kind of see that connection between the financial industry and the government as having been very destructive to just a democracy in general, a republic in general.
Well, that means, should I say, democracy and republic? That means both the Democrats and Republicans are responsible for all the
Absolutely.
problems we are facing. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let me show this book back to you. And, Wood's End, and the other one is Discerning Spirits. Both are available at Amazon.com. You can also find Wood's End and this book on Kindle version. And can you go ahead, Alex, and show the third book coming up?
Yes, the third book. It's an ebook on Amazon. The soft cover will be up in a matter of weeks. It's called The Year Between the Wood. It's a second book, and then the third book, which is underway, is called The World in the Wood.
All right, there was a mishap here. Let me show my book, the two books from my end, one more time. I think I missed it. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen. Wood's End and Discerning Spirits, and available on various bookstores wherever books are sold. And if you don't find it, you can always go ahead and place an order through your local bookstore. Very good. Well, Alex, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much. It's been just a pleasure talking to you. And again, I'm just so impressed with you. You've done your homework, and you're obviously serious about your show, and I appreciate that.
Well, the thing that if you had liked all the interjections of the movie that we played, and I think that is probably the highlight, in addition to whatever you have done so far, which is a fantastic job that you have done with writing these books. And also, I believe that you were. I hope my audience and some of you will contact you. Perhaps they want to invest in your movie. Now, if somebody wants to contact you and talk to you about this movie or perhaps investment, how do they go about reaching you?
Well, I write a blog. It's www.alexandraclair.com, and Claire is spelled Clair. They can also email me. It's alex_Clair, Clair, at comcast.net. And I love to hear from people. I pray on a regular basis for people that read my books. And I love to hear from people. And yes, I would love to see this movie made, whether it's a traditional Hollywood production company, or whether it's an independent film. If someone's interested in independent film, we could definitely make this film happen. And I think it could make us all some money.
Well, yeah, absolutely. The Hollywood problem with the Hollywood is they have overly averse, or have an aversion to showing completely religious themes. So
Yes.
they may probably tone it down, but that's okay, because you still have a lot of religious theme based movies that always come out, like the latest Mel Gibson movie.
Right.
So
We do, by the way, have when you make an independent film, the hardest thing to get is not to finish the film, but the hardest thing to get is distribution. And there is a distribution company in Hollywood that loved the book and said that they would be interested in distributing the film if we made a quality product. So we already have a contact for distribution, and I've been in touch with them. I'm actually writing a screenplay right now based on something they want to look at. So
what will be the rating on this movie you expect?
That's a good question. I don't know. What do you think? I don't think it would be R.
I think you should make it R rating.
I don't think so. I would hope it would not be R. There's
Okay.
no sex in the
PG-13?
movie.
PG-13?
Yeah, I would hope it would be a general rating.
General rating, that will be absolutely incredible if you can get it.
It would be, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect, very good. So that's fantastic. G rating would be open to everybody.
Yes, it would be, yeah.
Okay,
definitely.
that's also much harder to get. That.
It is, but there's no blatant sex in the movie. The story, I think that the plot really carries this. The plot and as you said, the dynamics of the characters and the way that they're developed really carry the story.
Okay.
And I find that people really identify with the characters, and some people got mad at me. One of the questions, I wrote an entire new chapter for the book because people were upset that in the first edition of the book, I didn't say what happened to the dog.
Oh, well,
And,
you know what? We have to hold that thought because we have run out of time here.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
So what we are going to, ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back. Alex, please stay on the line, and we are going to close this, and I want to talk to you for a couple of more minutes after the show. Please stay on the line.
Thank you so much, Ravi.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back.
Five.
Wait. I just need a minute. This is Stephanie. Woods End. I know that it's wrong of me to call. Why should you talk to the woman who broke up your marriage?
You're not that important. And whatever Dudley has told you, by now you know he lies.
Yes, about everything. I have no right to ask this,